Right, it's 7 o'clock. Can you hear me with these mics? They're not doing very well. We have a problem with the mics tonight, so I'll try and speak loudly. You're gonna have to be quiet, I guess, to hear me. Welcome to our city council meeting for Harrisville City. Welcome to all of you here. Welcome to the staff and council. We are going to excuse Chief Wilson and Director 5 tonight. We'll have an opening ceremony, pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Fawcett.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, so grateful for the opportunity that we have to meet tonight as council and mayor, administrators, and members of Harrisville City. We pray that we'll be able to have a spirit be with us, that we will be able to discuss the needs of the city and come to some decisions and to be able to have a meeting that will help us to grow as a city and to grow closer together as citizens. And we ask for these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Councilmember Fawcett. Moving on to item 3, our consent items. Approval of meeting minutes for February 11th, 2025 is needed. Council, have you had a chance to look at those? Yes. Any changes? Anything?
No.
All right. Have a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as approved for February 11th, 2025.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Item number 4, which is, I think about half of you are here for. We have employee recognition. I'm going to turn the time over to, oh my gosh, Assistant Chief Keller.
Hey everyone, so tonight we have 2 good reasons for the police department to be here. One, we're celebrating one of our employees, and then we've got a new employee that we're going to be swearing in. So we're really happy that we have everyone here, you know, as much as everybody, we have people on vacation. So, but tonight we wanted to start off about talking about one of our officers that's been a pivotal person in our agency as a whole, not just in the current job that he has, but throughout his career here. He is a fine example of an employee for the city. He's also a fine example of what a police officer should be. So tonight, we're here to celebrate Detective Jason Keller. Detective Keller has been with the Harrisville Police Department for 5 years. He started as a patrol officer and is currently serving as our lead detective in investigations. He has been successfully drafted and served search warrants and arrest warrants. Over the past year, he has focused on furthering his knowledge and his abilities in investigations. He has closed many high priority cases.
I'm going to stop you. Jason, you want to come up here?
Coming up. So Detective Keller has been attending training courses to further enhance the department's capabilities and his own personal growth as an officer. He is the department's current instructor for autism and de-escalation. He also holds a FTO certification and is a licensed drone pilot. He's also a certified phlebotomist with the state of Utah and responds to assistance when needed, which we get quite often from our fellow agencies because they are not putting in the same amount of training and effort as our officers in Harrisville do. Not that that is a jab at other agencies, but I think that our officers go above and beyond when it comes to how they perceive themselves in their job as a police officer, not just an employee of the city. So Officer Keller, Detective Keller, is a great example of that. He's currently a member of the Weaver Morgan Homicide Task Force, and he works with the U.S. Marshals Violent Fugitive Apprehension Strike Team. And that's called VFAST. And what that is that's a group that goes out and is looking for the worst of the worst here in Utah. And they have quite a good record finding people, and Jason Keller's been a fantastic addition for them to have at their resource when they're going out looking for these people. He's also been moved over to the TAC, which is through Bureau of Criminal Identification, and he runs that part for the agency, so we have access to everybody's driver's licenses and all of those things. That's a pretty critical position for us. Over the past year, Detective Keller has participated in many community events, including Harrisville Easter egg hunt, Shop with the Hero, and Walmart's grand opening. Northview Fire's First Responders Night Out, the Walmart Trunk or Treat, our DEA Drug Take Back, and children's fundraisers, Ogden Police Department's Night Out, Riverdale's First Responder Event, and our Fall Festival. Additionally, we've done Sensory Santa, our Santa Parade, Shop with the Hero for the FOP, which was different than ours, and our Harrisville PD Shop with the Hero for Christmas. And he was awarded the FOP Member of the Year for 2024 for a small, we're just up here. This is great because this is just an example of how much work this man has been doing for not just us, but everybody, the residents and the people around us, not just Harrisville. Okay. Detective Keller has demonstrated exemplary conduct in helping covering normal patrol shifts, Tuesday through Thursday, while also handling his active caseload. So in the last year, our patrol staffing has fluctuated quite a bit. And Detective Keller has helped us maintain that 24/7 coverage for our residents, much to a lack of sleep for him and a loss for his family because he's not at home with them. He's here taking care of our residents and filling the needs we have here. So I really want to thank him for that part because that's really stepping up above and beyond. Okay, he remains on call and needed within the city. He's by phone or in person. He's the first to volunteer to help with any function. And he has shown an unwavering commitment to professional development by stepping up and being willing to do anything to help the city. From transporting cars for maintenance and cleaning cars to switching shifts with patrol guys so they can enjoy events with their families. So like I said, Detective Keller is a person for our city. He is not just a person who shows up for work and just does his job and goes. So he's always looking out for the needs of his fellow officers, the employees of the city and our residents. So I think that is something that is critical that a lot of people don't realize exactly how far some of our officers are willing to go. Detective Keller's dedication doesn't go without notice. He's received multiple letters from other agencies and the community thanking him for his help with everything he has done. And I would like to personally thank Detective Keller for his dedication and commitment to the Harrisville Police Department. And his supervisors, Sergeant Alicia Davis, and she's as proud of him as I am. And I think she's also one of the reasons why he's been so successful. So having the support around you with the folks that you work with and the folks that are supervising you is crucial. So a great deal of thanks to not just Detective Keller, but his boss, Sergeant Alicia Davis. But that's not the really cool part. So we received a letter from the Utah Chiefs of Police Association. And on behalf of the Utah Chiefs of Police Association, I am honored to inform you that Detective Jason Keller has been selected by the Utah Chiefs of Police Association to receive the Small Department Officer of the Year Award for 2025. This award will be presented at the conference at the Dixie Center at the end of the month. So small agencies, which is 90% of Utah law enforcement, and we've got the #1 officer standing in front of all of you right now. So.
You want to get up there and take your picture with them?
Say cheese or something. There we go. This is a happy day.
You want it, I can get easier.
Congratulations. Here's your wife.
No, I.
Happy birthday. Yeah.
And happy birthday.
You want to do that? Okay, let's do it.
Oh, no.
I'll shake it. Oh. Jason, come and shake our hands. We want to be there. Congratulations, that's an honor. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, I can. That's nice.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Yeah, you're done with that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I can't even see my. We're moving on to item number 5, which is an oath of office.
Right. So the second reason why we have so many of our officers here is because we've hired a new officer, and this is excuse me, Alex Molla. Alex, can you step up? Alex is brand new to law enforcement, and he is lucky enough to have picked us. And at the same time, I believe we are lucky enough to have picked him to come work with us in the Harrisville Police Department. So we're gonna do a real brief introduction of who you are.
Hey, I'm Alex Moore. Fairly new to law enforcement, but super excited to be part of Harrisville.
Happy to have you here. There's this photo op for you to see or run out around here. Okay, I'm rounding to see you there. Yeah, and then raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Alex Moore,
I, Alex Moore,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey,
obey
and defend the Constitution
the
of
Constitution
the United States,
of the United States,
Constitution
the
of
Constitution
the State of Utah,
of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duty
by
with fidelity.
Well, I'm not quite clear on this. That's my opinion. Anything right now? I'm gonna have his family come up that wants to take a picture with him, though, and you could do it right now. This doesn't happen very often, so let's celebrate. Watch the wire.
You gotta take them. Oh, no, good job.
Yeah.
Nobody can go against the wires. Okay.
That's a cruise there.
Camera's Ready? Oh, can
Okay,
you see?
everybody right.
Yeah.
Ready? Cheese, something.
See?
I don't want to touch you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Next. Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Pretty proud of him. We are all pretty proud of him. We are fully staffed in our police department. Yeah, and that's a good feeling. Moving on to item 6, which is our business items. Item A, our public hearing notice to receive input from the public for and or against ordinance 563, which is amending park impact fees. Jenny, would you like to explain this before we go into the public hearing?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. I'll give a brief overview of what we've been doing, working on about the last 9 months. Probably 9 months, close to a year. I'd like to introduce Lee Johnson from Zions Bank. He was assisting Susie with Zions Bank with our park impact fee analysis and our facilities plan. So he's actually prepared a PowerPoint presentation, and we're welcome to have him present that before the public hearing if you think that would help the residents. We'll have him present that before you take public comments, or he can present it at the time of your discussion. It's up to you when you'd like that.
I think it'd be beneficial prior to them.
Okay, Lee, would you like to come up? I've got your presentation. Let me share the screen with you.
Right, does this microphone work?
Apparently, we're having trouble, so
Okay, I'll just try to speak a little loud then.
thank you.
Okay, well, good evening. Thank you for having me. As Jenny introduced me, my name is Lee Johnson. I work with Science Public Finance with Susie Becker, if any of you happen to know who she is. So I'm here representing the group and here to talk about impact fees, specifically the Parks and Recreation impact fees for Harrisville. Now, I will say that the bulk of the information is going to be on the actual legal documents, which we'll touch on briefly. So I'm here to be a point of contact to answer any questions. I may answer your questions as I go through this presentation, so I'd ask to save the questions towards the end. So before we get going, I do think it's always good to do a quick review, make sure everyone in the room is on the same page. So Jenny, if you go to the next slide. I think it's always good to ask and remind ourselves, what is an impact fee? Luckily, this slide answers that question. It's a one-time fee charged to new development to offset the capital costs associated with new development. So in other words, when you have a lot of new development coming in, that's a lot of new people, and those people are going to be calling the police, they're going to be using the roads, they're going to be using water, and they're going to be using the parks. So what an impact fee is for when these new developments come in, they pay their fair share, so those service levels stay the same and they're not overloaded. So specifically for the Parks and Recreation impact fee at Harrisville, this can only cover costs of system improvements, not project improvements. So what that means is that we worked with Jenny to identify all the parks that we would consider system parks. Parks that benefit the entire community, not just one or two developments. So we didn't include any parks in the calculation that are just, a quarter acre, no parking lot, right by a new development. These are only including parks in the calculation that serve the entire community. And finally, this is governed by Utah Code, Title 11, Chapter 36A. And the two legal documents I'm going to be referring to a lot are called the Impact Fee Facilities Plan and the Impact Fee Analysis, commonly called IFFP and IFA. So you'll hear those acronyms a lot. That's what it means. So going to the next slide, we can go into those a little bit more. There is some overlap between these two documents, but these two documents are essentially the legal and transparent way that we show the people why we're assessing these fees and how they were calculated. So when you're looking at the IFFP, what you want to be looking for is the service levels. That's the actual level of service that we use as a baseline to calculate what needs that we need in the future with new development. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Also has demand created by new development, impact on existing facilities by new development, and new facilities needed in cost. So there's some overlap, but what you want to look for the most is the service levels. That should be the most scrutinized thing in the IFFP. Then on the next slide, talks about the elements of the IFA, impact fee analysis. Really what you want to look at is a proportionate share analysis. That's the verbiage that's used in the Utah State Code. And pretty much what it's saying is this is where the fee is actually calculated, line by line. It's very straightforward. Any qualifying costs or future costs that are calculated based on the state code are gonna be in this section, and it'll be clearly laid out how we got to the final number. So you'll also see the construction costs of new facilities, other costs, and financing credits, which we'll touch on just a little bit. So that was a quick little crash course on impact fees and specifically the little nuanced pieces of information for Harrisville. So when you look at this graph, these are the projections for population growth over the next 10 years. The study period is from 2024 to 2034. And Harrisville is expecting, well, we're expecting to see 2,750 approximately new residents over 10 years, which is a large number of residents. Going to the next slide is where we actually identify what the service level is. So this can be found on the IFFP. This is the baseline for calculating the impact fee. And how we measure the service level in Harrisville City is actually through improved acres per 1,000 persons. So per 1,000 people or residents in Harrisville City, is currently in 2024, 5.73 improved acres. So that's acres that have sprinkler systems, playgrounds, amenities like that per 1,000 persons. And considering the new developments coming in, if nothing is done, then that service level is going to fall to 4.14 acres per 1,000 people. So that's the reasoning behind the impact fee. So if we go to the next slide, we can see the total amount calculated. There's much more detail in the IFA. I'm here to just give you a quick little, I guess, rundown of this number. But when you go through the IFA, you'll see that to maintain the level of service that we currently have per 1,000 residents, we'll have to acquire just under 16 acres of approved parkland. And that was calculated on today's dollars to cost roughly $6 million. Going to the next slide, we can calculate, and this is found at the end of the IFA, the impact fee. And I'm just going to walk you through how we calculate it line by line. So the first line is the parkland improvements per capita. So how this was calculated is we took the entire asset list that Harrisville has for qualifying parks and amenities. And we calculated how much it would cost to replace everything we have today in today's dollars. And then we divided that per number of people that are currently living in Harrisville. And then we took that same number, the $2,189, and multiplied it by that growth. That's how we got the $6 million. After that, we took the consultant costs. So that's costs for me and Susie at Zion's Public Finance to create these legal documents, as well as to come and present and other services like that. We took that amount, we divided it by the anticipated growth. We do have a credit. So the fund balance credit, impact fees are very stringent with how they can legally be used and dispersed. And right now there is an impact fee fund balance for parks and recreation, and that's going to be credited to the new development coming in. The total so taking those calculations together, we get a total per capita of $2,023.56. And using the latest US Census Bureau 2023 American Community Survey estimate, the current household size in Harrisville City is 2.94. And we multiply that by the total per capita to get that final figure that's just under $6,000. So obviously that's a big number. And one thing that you'll naturally ask yourself when you see that is, where do we stand in relation to our peers? So the next slide shows the park impact fees throughout the state. I do want to start by saying that all of these numbers they may be outdated. These numbers were pulled just over a year ago. And I do know that there are some cities that have recently updated their numbers and some cities that have actually just started introducing an impact fee for parks and recreation. But what we're seeing is currently the Harrisville impact fee for parks and recreation is at $1,700, and it's going to be going up to about $6,000. So that's a really big gap, but that's also something that we've been seeing throughout the state, not just with park impact fees, but all impact fees. Impact fees seem to be a lagging indicator of the inflationary costs that have happened after COVID and everything else. And if you go to the next slide, I did my best to find specifically cities in Weber County. And these were the cities that I could easily find. There's a lot that aren't up there, but this is where Harrisville will stand in relation to other cities in the area. So obviously, big jump. And we worked hard with Jenny to do the best we could to get that number as low as possible, and also keep in mind that this is the maximum legally permissible impact fee that can be charged. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to charge this number, but this is what our numbers, this is the result of our numbers. And we're gonna stand by these numbers. So that's everything I've prepared for you today, and I'm happy to serve as a point of contact and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have a discussion now, or do we need to have the public hearing first? All right, thank you. We'll go.
Thank you.
Motion for public hearing.
Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
I'll second it.
I have a motion is second. Don't I need a roll call for this? No? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this is an opportunity for those in the audience that would like to come to the podium, express your concerns about the park impact fees, and you have 3 minutes to do so. Please come to the podium and state your name.
Kevin Ferris, obviously new to me, don't know how new it is to you. One, it seems like you even have on your agenda to possibly adopt something tonight, hopefully it'll take as much time as needed. To really look through this. One concern I have, and one keywords that I heard was that he presented the maximum that you could go to. Now he's presented what you currently at, but is that what you need to stay with? Because $6 million is an impact fee. Yes, I considerably won't pay it, but if you want to keep affordable housing, you're tacking that on to whatever new housing is. And I know all of you have been concerned, and I've heard it regularly about affordable housing, and consider anything else, other impact fees that you're putting on these developments, and look at, is it for new, just for new, or what other upgrades that you're looking at? I think you need a lot more detail probably to carry out the thing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
I'm Steve, but I'm just down the street in Harrisville. I just had one question, on it says that Independence Park is a system park. Is that right? Well, I guess I was told by some of the city personnel that it's not a park anymore, that it's retention. You might want to check out there. Thanks.
Anyone else?
It's got that information on the impact fee, and it's gonna be the impact on new housing that's gonna come into Harrisville. And does the council already have all the information of what that's gonna impact? Maybe a house that's $500,000 to $700,000, how much that is gonna impact an extra fee for those people to build in Harrisville. I don't know if you've got all that information to okay an impact fee just in a couple of minutes. So I don't know if you've got that information to okay something like that without really delving into it. All of the fees that are going to be implemented on new housing is going to impact people that come into our area. And do they be able to afford that? If they know how much that impact fee is combined with all the other impact fees that we're opposing. I don't know if any figures have come out on a $500,000 house. What would that make that fee be? I know we can't get in that conversation, but anyway, I think you ought to look at that. And I don't know if you guys have got that information beforehand and be able to invoke that fee on people that are gonna build in Harrisville.
Thank you, Tait. Anyone else? If not, I'm going to offer a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. This is up for discussion. The next item B is up for discussion, the possible action to adopt ordinance 563. And this is where your questions can be discussed. Anything more to that?
So we already assessed part B. How much more will it be for new residents than what people are paying now?
So that was on that one slide that we saw. It's almost 1,700. I can't read that.
It goes up $4,200.
Yeah.
That's a fee up front, like when they buy it.
Building permit.
Building.
3,200 for one house.
That's my question is that $4,200 per house?
That's it for him.
So this is new development.
Yes.
So right now, where are the parks that we're looking at that are being developed? I know obviously we're looking on the golf course. It's actually the one that's behind us with all the new developments going in there.
So there's two ways that parks are analyzed during the impact fee process. The calculation is based on our system parks, which Lee gave explanation that our system parks have to be available for the majority of our population. So for example, the pocket park on 1100 North, it does not classify as a system park. It doesn't have a parking lot. It's not a centrally located park where the majority of the residents can drive and use that amenity. And so there are the system parks that were calculated, and then the facilities plan also includes our new facilities that we anticipate having to put park impact fees towards to create the parks. So to answer your question, Councilmember Wilkinson, it's two separate types of analysis. The parks that are used for the system to determine the level of service that we have, and the future parks that we will be creating to continue to have the level of service that we have in the parks.
With the growth that's anticipated in the next 10 years.
Yes.
So it's current and future.
And this is just to keep the same level of the residents. Yes. Resident.
So the park impact fees that we also mentioned, they're restricted funds to just new growth projects. So we cannot use park impact fees to do the replacement of playground equipment or replacement of the splash pad or the replacement of the existing amenities we already have, like the Frisbee golf course. Any of those things, we cannot use park impact fees to maintain those. We can only use park impact fees for new infrastructure, for new growth, new parks, new things. That makes sense.
So another question would be, your opinion, and it's all it is an opinion. You showed us the graph of where we stand from one spot to another. You said several cities haven't done it, an impact fee study, so, and some are, and so some are not showing the skews is where it is. Because it looks like we're out there in the head, it's like we're shooting for the stars. But we don't know how that fits within the whole city, not that I'm trying to, or within the county or the state. Is that right?
What was your question? What's
The question is that how accurate is the information?
The,
To the best of your knowledge, I know you said that.
the information of those impact fees are accurate as of March 2024. So any city that's updated that information, it's not gonna be accurate, except for maybe South Ogden. I think I updated them because they recently increased their impact fee.
So are you wondering if we're gonna change that much, or if we're that far above other cities?
I am concerned about that, but the other side is that we're talking over a 10-year period of time. And how often do we do studies?
It's recommended that we do them every 6 years.
So every 6 years, so within the next 10 years, with this growth, there will be at least one more impact study. We'll probably go through. Okay. Is there a need to raise it this much? I know you talked about being the standard. No, but I see the jump. It's not here.
That would be determined by this body, what you want to set but it can't exceed what our study indicates is the maximum, but it can certainly go down. This is to maintain the level of service of our parks. So obviously, if we don't capture the full amount, then we will have to prioritize our facilities list on what you as a body want us to priority focus those funds on to complete those projects. But this recommendation is to keep the level of service at the same spot we have it currently.
If you get into the actual IFFA, the analysis, it breaks down the on board. In our next projections of the 10 years, we have two major parks slated to go in the city. One behind your residence, the other one down off North Harrisville Road. So this would allow us, this increase would allow us to build those parks and put those amenities in. If we do not have this funds coming in, then we're pulling from other sources, aka property tax, other revenue sources the city brings in to build those parks. So we did do the analysis of what we would like to have at the new parks and the amenities we would like to have, and that should be in the packet of the IFFA. And then this is the IFFP, this is actual the money, how it comes in.
But just to clarify with that this number is determined based on the level of service that we're giving currently.
So those two parks that you're talking about going in, is that something that's required for the amount of population that we have, or is that something that we're doing to have access to green space?
I think it's having access to green space, it's the amount of community growth. It's all encompassing, right? It's not just, oh, we didn't, you know, again, we can't expend impact fee money unless we've done the analysis that shows, hey, we've had growth, we've had impact on our community. We need to give our residents more green space, more park space, more places to recreate.
And then I was just gonna follow up on your question with that, talking about, is it determined by the cost of the home? Is that kind of what I understood, is that this impact fee? But what I'm understanding is it's regardless of the cost of home, size of the lot, it's when you pull your building permit, that's when you pay that fee. So it has nothing to do with the affordability in your house. It just adds
A
that.
simple way to say that is the impact fee is a set cost per building permit. It doesn't fluctuate based on the market value or the taxable value. Similar to the property tax works. It's a set cost associated with it per household based on the mathematics that was done.
And it is also not charged to commercial manufacturing developments, only residential developments that have an impact on our parks. Yeah.
So right now, landowners or the developers that do own this property that you're talking about, how likely are they to sell it to us in order to do these? Or are they gonna say, no, we're gonna develop it?
They're dedicating, the parks we're referencing in this plan, the developers are dedicated to the city. We're not paying that impacted our analysis as well. They take into consideration whether the city has had to put money out to purchase the property or whether that property is donated to us.
When they give us that land, are we under the gun to get right after the project?
It would be in the best benefit of the city to yes, be creating those parks as the development is going in. We don't want 12 acres of raw land that undeveloped that we have to maintain for our code enforcement side of things.
And I know that, I mean, that sounds like a lot if we were to do the max, but when you pull your permit, you're taking money from your loan, $6,000 is the matter of over 30 years, you know, less than $50. So I know it sounds like it's making it, you know, a bad situation for people with, you know, the moderate housing, but it's not going to impact as much as it sounds like. But I do have it in my consideration, but just an understanding of what that looks like over a 30-year.
Better in the back, we can hear you up here, would you either take it outside or something quiet, please?
My concern is that we just have to speak loud. These are no mics, aren't there?
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you back here.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. There's nothing we can do. We didn't know that this was the
Then maybe
situation.
you pull over to this side so you can be up a little bit further.
But sure we could, it just seems full, so we could.
Right, yeah. Totally understand that.
Let's do that now then, if you need to hear, because there's.
But I can kind of repeat that. I was just saying over a 30-year loan that the $6,000 that you're pulling or paying for the impact fee when you pull your permit isn't impacting your payment so much that it's not affordable. I'm saying that it's a consideration for me when I'm thinking about how much that actually is. But those concerned about the affordable housing, it's not making it unaffordable to have that in your loan. Having dealt with that, yeah. I don't know if it needs to make it that much, I'm just saying.
You're out of order, Blake.
Yeah, we're out of time already.
Yeah, you cannot, you're not part of the discussion now. The public hearing is over, so you need to stay seated.
Well, you said you quit it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions?
How long have we been working on this?
Like that, I can't remember exactly when we started, but it's been at least 9 months, probably close to a year, maybe.
That sounds about right.
On a year that our first analysis of the fee was astronomical. And we were concerned about that, and so we worked very diligently to reassess what our level of service and the cost. As you can imagine, plot costs have been all over the place and they are continuing to be. And so being able to nail down those costs to continue the study, we wanted to give you as much accurate information as we could. So we pulled that maximum number down as far as we could with our level of service that we offer.
Isn't there a timeline that impact fees have to be spent once they're received by the city? So yeah, once we receive these, they've got to be spent to improve these parks within 6 years.
So you have 6 years to spend this money, and not, the rest goes back to the developer.
Under the state law, yes, there are some caveats to that, but that's the general requirement, yes.
And does that coincide with the reevaluation he was talking about, 6
Yeah.
years?
Yes. That's the recommended time frame. believe, yeah.
I'm looking at, trying to figure out which page it is. This is the page that says parks improvements. And then that it says systems and parks. Are these things that, this is the money that can be spent on improvement?
Sorry, if you can give me a page number, we can,
Page 6, I just found it.
thank you.
Yeah.
And is that on the facilities plan?
I'm not sure.
Consistent with the park improvements.
Yeah, it's right there. You're on it.
Okay.
This table?
Yes.
So this is what we're spending money for now.
So this is not what we're spending money on. This is what the cost would be to replace what we currently have in today's dollars. So it takes all the amenities that we offer to our residents and it puts today's dollars on that.
Okay.
It's like an inventory of what we have here in the city right now.
So what I'm seeing here, then the question that Steve would ask, is this a retention pond or is this the facilities? Our main park.
So our main park meets the definition for park. It has
Okay.
open space, it has sod, it has watering system, it has a walking path. It meets the definition of a park, yes.
This is, okay, that's fine, that's all I needed to clarify. Thank you.
Any more discussion?
I guess the concern is there some things that we need to discuss, is that we're tabling it for 1 month, or is there a need to get it out and going? What's our timeline?
Our timeline after adoption is 90 days before the impact fee is enacted. There's a 90-day waiting period after the adoption. As far as tabling it, I would just ask for specific questions or concerns so that staff has appropriate direction on what information you're looking for as it's tabled.
I have a specific question, other than just to make sure I'm reviewing and understanding everything. It's the old man thing, sorry.
So in 6 months, we can review this again, or 6 years, excuse me. The plan, we could review this again
Yes, it's,
in 6 years,
we
right?
should be, we're outdated. The last park impact fee was adopted in 2015.
I definitely understand where it needs to go up. But I'm okay with doubling it, but not tripling it. That's my opinion.
So then the question.
But it's at 3,400 instead of 4,600. That's. Am I reading those numbers correctly? I apologize. I can't see that far. I feel like.
So this would be the double it and then no. But it's almost 6,000.
So just, you said if we don't,
5,000.
yeah,
Oh, I thought it was 46, 56.
So that was what it is increasing.
Thank you.
you're saying if we don't maintain, we have to find money from other places.
Yeah.
I think,
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, and apologize for cutting Justin off, I just tend to kind of throw answers out there, harsher than some. If a park impact fee is calculated based on Zion's public finance to maintain the same level, right? So this educated person here went through all the math and said to keep the same level of service for Harrisville City, you have to charge $5,949. If we choose not to, certainly the council's prerogative. What happens then is you have two choices. What services are you going to lessen, or what general fund money is going to pay the difference? I mean, that is the analysis. Is if we don't want to do the impact fees to keep the services the same, the services have to go down, or an alternate source of funding has to pay the difference.
And I know, when I was, a lot of talk that we have is maintaining the parks and having the space. having a place for kids to be and having these amenities, but the money has to come from somewhere. And we're not trying to put the burden on current citizens. I'm not trying to punish people moving into Harrisville, but it's gonna grow. And just like I feel like people should pay for their own trash, I feel like, you know, the infrastructure that it takes to facilitate these homes coming in, they need to have some buy-in and accountability in that, because they're the services that population is gonna use. So, I understand that, because I'm having a hard time with that number too. Because it looks just like a ton of money. But at the same time, I understand that's in today's dollars.
Yeah, for considering your current asset list, yes.
Yeah, and not what it might be in 3 years when we actually build a park. Where the costs are gonna go up and more money is gonna have to come out of the general fund somewhere to pay for this. So I definitely see the need for that much. Does it make me wanna throw up? A little bit. But, you know, we have to consider that moving forward. That, where that money's gonna come from eventually.
And we're not looking 3 years to start the parks, are we?
Creek is already the
Yeah.
development's already started.
Yeah, so that one will go right
So,
away.
Yeah,
And then if we don't, we do this reevaluation in 6 years, it could be worse. So,
if we haven't spent some of the money for them, it was that, so
Yeah,
we're starting with
so
less.
we're gonna start, you know, the park, but if we don't do anything or we lower it, I mean, in 6 years, it could be worse.
Just a broad statement. We looked at this in many ways. Impact fees don't drive market values as much as you would think. Essentially, if a developer saves some money on impact fees, it's not gonna make the home value go down.
Questions. It's all right.
Do you have any more questions or discussion, or what would you like to do, council?
Or if you were to lower the amount, what would you? And
How much did you say it would be for 30-year?
so you're looking like $20 to $50. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 563 amending park impact fees.
Second.
So just to be clear, as stated in the study, or you want that suggesting?
As stated in the study.
Second, okay with that? All right. All right, I have a motion and a second. I will need a roll call vote for this. Councilmember Christensen.
No.
Councilmember Williamson.
No,
Councilmember Fawcett.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember White.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to item C. which is 750 West Complex, City Hall, Public Safety Financial Discussion. And we welcome Marcus Keller back. Wow.
Okay. I guess I'll speak loud for the microphone, so.
Thank you.
I do have a little handout here, just in case you want to make some notes, but I believe it's also gonna be put up on the screen as well, so we'll do a little. Stop right here. Should have we can have it put up on the screen and talk about the rest of it, but. So today, just kind of, we wanted to talk to you about a unique opportunity, and Jenny can give us more details on exactly where we're at on the public safety building and pricing and different things along those lines. But as I spoke to Jenny a few weeks ago, you know, again, we've talked about all of our different options. We've talked about the different choices the city will have to make because of some of the bonds that would need to be either start being spent or being paid off. And so as we kept kind of circling back on it, we kind of had an idea. And based off the numbers Jenny had given me and what we were currently missing based off cost estimates for the public safety building, it seemed like our delta, or the difference between what we had and what we needed, was roughly about $3.5 million. And as many of you know, and as probably as the public remembers as well, you know, a lot of the bonds that we issued 2 years ago are locked in at very low rates. And so as we talked about it, the original discussion was, okay, we're going to send back the $9 million that's already locked in at a low 25-year, I believe it's at a 4.75% rate. Just as a way of example for the public, we bid out a 15-year deal the other day and it came in at just around 5%. So again, there's some good value there currently with the bonds that the city's issued, but without getting too much into the weeds. So the option was to send back the 9 million, the 2023 bonds, and to potentially go out to the public and try to pursue a $12.5 million bond by giving up one of the bonds that's already locked in $9 million, 25 years at roughly a 4.75%. And we kind of thought through that. We said, you know, that seems like we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot to try to find that $3.5 million. And so I said, let me make some phone calls, and I apologize. I wish I would have gotten this information out before today because I didn't get an answer back today. The issue we're running into is that to issue that $3.5 million, we have to show that this number stays above 2 times coverage. So currently right now we have our 22 bonds, our 23 bonds. Oh, I'm making a mess here on the screen. I won't touch it anymore, I promise. And 25 bonds with that print or the asterisk, those are not issued. That would be if we issued $3.5 million. That's what that debt service would look like, roughly $280,000 a year over a 20-year period. But the combination of those debt service payments, based off our current revenue, we told the current bondholder of the 22s and the 23s, which is Bank of Utah, we told them that if we issued additional debt, we would not drop below 2 times coverage. And 2 times is a little bit higher than, usually we put that at about 1.5 times. But when we issued the 23 bonds, we didn't think we were going to need any more money. So we said, hey, we're going to give you a little bit better coverage because we want a little bit better rate, right? So we said, we're going to more security, better rate, everyone wins type situation. So that's currently the issue we're at right now. So I called Bank of Utah and I said, listen, the city's this close from being able to get their project financed. They're at $3.5 million difference between what they need and what they currently have based off the numbers we've discussed. Is there any way that you would be willing to waive your right as the bondholder to allow them to issue these bonds? We could work with you to place them with Bank of Utah again as the purchaser. And allow them to have a one-time exemption, because what the rule is in the legal documents, it says your additional bond test requires you to show over 2 times coverage to issue additional debt. He came back to me about 11 o'clock last night and said, I finally got an answer from our CEO and from our group, and they said that they would be willing to do that for Harrisville City on a couple caveats, and we'll go over those in a little bit more detail. But he said if they need the $3.5 million, we would rather give them $3.5 million than then pay off that 9 million. Like, we would rather than finish the project at 12.5 million than scrap it and then just kind of say like, well, gosh, that really didn't help anybody type situation. So again, they are banks, so they are profit motive. So he said the only thing I would ask or I would require is, one, that we make this bound to each other. So he says, if you go to pay off these bonds early, if you issue the 2025 bonds, so these haven't been issued, just to clarify, there's no 3.5 million outstanding. This is the hypothetical situation. He said, if you issue these $3.5 million and eventually you want to come in a few years from now and refund my debt because rates are lower or whatever may happen, he said, I would just ask that if you refund it, you have to refund everything. And that gives him a little more security. So we couldn't kind of just pick and choose, say, oh, we're only going to refund the highest one and take that out immediately. It's if we refinanced it, we'd have to refinance the 22s, the 23s, and the 25s. That's actually not a big deal, because if we went to refinance these bonds, we would package them all together and take them to the market to get a bond rating, where we would probably get the lowest interest rates based off that time, because it'll be a much larger bond. And we would want economies of scale. So to me, I'm just like, okay, that's not that big of a deal anyways. Second thing he said is all of these bonds, the 22s and the 23s, are call protected. Or I'm sorry, they're callable anytime. So that means if you wanted to pay them off early, if you wanted to, like we talked about the 23, send the money back at this point, you could, type situation. He said, if we issue the 25 bonds, I want a 3-year call protection on it. And we were on a call, I kind of grinned because I was like, well, if we went to the market, we'd have to give them a 10-year call protection. So, okay, I think we could stomach that. So anyways, those were his 2 things. And then the last thing, I said, well, can you send me some indicative rates? Because he kind of knows he has a little bit bus over the barrel a little bit, right? Because he kind of holds the cards. He said, sure, send them over. It was just under 5% on a 20-year deal. And again, we just priced some geo bonds. It was a smaller deal, different credit, and they were at 5% on a 15-year deal. So to me, that meant that he's not going to try to gouge the city as far as pricing. It was actually very good pricing considering what it could have been, if that makes sense. Now, that pricing is not like locked. He clarified, he said, until we get 30 days out from closing, I can't lock in my pricing. But, if market goes up 10 basis points, you would expect it to be 10 basis points higher. If it went down 10 basis points, you'd expect it to be 10 basis points lower. But he kind of set the mark on where he thought that would be. So the discussion I wanted to talk to you about today is to say, I think we're kind of at that pivotal junction to say, do we want to move forward? And Jenny, please feel free to give as much detail on the public safety building in the project. Do we want to move forward with looking at this $3.5 million and finishing this project, finally getting it done? Or do we want to send the $9 million back? And now, if we ever want to do that project, we're back at the $12.5 million deficit. So I think that's where I'll stop and turn it over to Jenny.
Thank you, Marcus. So I'll kind of close the gap with this proposal that we kind of came up with this. We discussed having to turn back the $9 million. I think there were 2 things that we focused on after the referendum was filed last year. The first one is, what are you doing with the money? Why are you asking for this money? Well, we are almost a year later. We have almost completed the architectural design of the building. So we know what it looks like, we know the square footage, we know all of that, and we have that ready to provide. And the second question was how is the city going to pay for that, right? And how is it gonna impact the current residents? So sometimes unfortunate circumstances provide a way for you to look at things differently than you saw in the past. And having said that, with the loss of our finance director, I was highly involved in the audit, and with Jill's help, we were able to reanalyze the general fund balance. And while we were doing that, we discovered that the maximum the city is allowed to have as fund balance at the end of a fiscal year is 35% of our general fund balance. That equates out to approximately 1.7, 1.8 million, depending on where our general fund balance comes in. So what the proposal that we would be making tonight to cover any issuance of additional bond money is that the city doesn't impose any more financial burden on our current residents, but rather, instead of maximizing the 35% fund balance, we pull that back to about 20% fund balance, which would still be $1 million savings for the city. Savings, when I say savings, you recognize that's the fund balance that goes in, but the remainder of that 15% that we've been capturing would go to pay for these bond payments. So we're not proposing a property tax increase with this. We're not proposing any adjustments necessarily related to this. If the council decides to continue staff's recommendation of going through truth in taxation so we can evaluate the budget and maintain our certified tax rate, that'll be a discussion we have a couple months down the line. That is not part of this discussion. That is not what staff is proposing today. The proposal we have for you is the hard work on Marcus's part to work with our the bond owner and to look at the city's current financial status. And can we handle this, as we are already paying payments on the $9 million? We wanted to close the gap of the additional issuance to see if we could make that happen. And when we had any hope of that happening, we wanted to present that to you. What that looks like with the design of the building, we met with the architect last Thursday. And without disclosing too much information, I asked if we were to pull our project back to 2.5 million, or 12.5 million total money, not to exceed. We would have to do similar to what we did with the Public Works building, which is add alternatives on the project. We would have to pull off the Sally Port for the police department. We would have to make some adjustments to what we have been designing, but we could make that happen with a maximum of the 12.5 million. If we go lower than that, we're pretty much compromising what we've designed. We're going into the big dollar amounts of the architectural design at that point. And it would make a lot of sense for us to move forward with what we've spent the last year doing. So I wanted to make sure that the council understands, as we've partnered and worked through this, we've tried to keep the information really close to staff so that we know we were challenged last year with a lot of rumors and a lot of misinformation that was spread through our community of what the city was actually doing. And we didn't want this information to get out until it was presented to council. We wanted you to be the first to know, you to be the ones educated on it. So as you're posed with questions from the public, that you are informed and you can answer those. So our proposal tonight is similar, although I will say one thing we forgot to mention, Marcus, is this is not a local building authority issuance. This is a sales and franchise tax revenue issuance. So this is the exact same issuance that we've done on the 22 and 23 series. And with absorbing the cost of the additional issuance, we pulled it back what the city's fund balance is at the end of the fiscal year to about 20%. We can absorb the payments for this building. Happy to answer any questions, however, things whatever you want to know about the project.
please ask lots of questions, because I know, you know, your neighbors are gonna be asking you about this, right? I mean, we want you to make sure you have every bit of information. I feel like in my mind, if the city council wants this project, public safety, you know, this building, you know, I kind of was very frank with Jenny. I said, you know, going to people and saying, hey, we're almost there. We need $3.5 million to get us over the finish line is much easier than going back and saying, hey, we need $12.5 million. Again, regardless if you pay those bonds off or not. I feel like just sticker shock and everything else is just a hard thing. Now, obviously, there's a story to this because the total project cost is $12.5 million. But again, it would be, in my professional opinion, it really would be a shame to turn in one of your lower interest loans with the hope of going back out and probably borrowing at a higher interest rate. I mean, that's a negative for everyone involved, right? Maybe not the bank, but so. But again, yeah, as Jenny mentioned, the reason we went through the local building authority last time is because we didn't explore this potential option. If we drop below that 2 times, if the bank would be giving us a waiver, and just to be completely honest, that's very unheard of. So they're a regional bank here in Utah, based out of Ogden. So I think, you know, kind of your kind of location played a big part to them be willing to give you that one-time waiver as well. And it took a lot of work. I asked them about 3 weeks ago or whenever it was, we had that conversation and literally didn't get back until late last night that yes, we can accommodate if that's the direction they want to go.
Currently, we're paying on the 2022
Yes.
And 3,
and 3.
correct.
So we've got those already being implemented.
The nice thing is when we did issue the 22, particularly the 22, the 23 has been probably, it has been better. It's probably been more of a wash, but you have been able to get some of the benefits of the higher interest rates in the PTIF account. But as we've mentioned before, you can only do that for so long before it's a little slap on the wrist and you have to spend the proceeds.
When you say absorb, we would reduce the amount of the fund balance from the 35% down to 20%, yes.
Sorry, that's over my head.
Same as our community day fund.
It's the remaining fund balance, yes, the law only allows us to collect the 35% maximum. We have been doing that since we imposed the property tax increase in 2022. And what our analysis this year determined was, do we need to keep that amount when the public was coming and saying, save for your project, save, we could do it that way, but as we've been told by our architect and Marcus, we will never save, we will not outpace inflation on our project. We'll never be able to save enough money to pay for our project.
So we felt like this was very, at least worthy enough to present to the council, just because based off the numbers Jenny told us, it seemed like it would help you avoid truth in taxation for this project. So there would not be a property tax increase related to this project, which was a big issue. I remember when we did meet here, everybody wanted to be self-sustained. The city would be able to pay for it out of current revenues of the city, similar to the 22s and 23s. The local building authority wasn't very much liked, and now we don't have to go through that process either. This would be a sales tax revenue bond, similar to the other 2 bonds outstanding. The process would be similar to the other 2, parameters meeting and a public hearing. And assuming those went well, I would suggest, you know, probably closing and locking in rates. I mean, a lot of people do anticipate that rates may go a little bit lower over this year, but tariffs and everything else, that's something I would never want to gamble with. Who knows what's going to happen over the rest of this year. But long story short, you're at an affordable enough rate at this point, around that 5%, that
it would be able to be absorbed by current revenues of the city based off the fund balance redistribution. But, any questions, please? Because again, I know you guys are kind of the mouthpiece. You are the mouthpiece for the city. When people ask you about, why are we doing another $3.5 million? Again, to clarify, the city already has 9 million. It's a $12.5 million project. This 3.5 million would fill that gap and would be able to do so without going through truth and taxation to pay for this project.
Also,
The 2022 is 20 years. I believe if you scroll down, you can see, and the 2023 is a 25-year bond. So that's why it was actually a little bit higher interest rate because it had a longer term. Bank of Utah actually said if we wanted to look at a 25-year deal, it would be a higher interest rate, but it would potentially lower the 280. So if that's something we could present both options, if this is the direction the council wants to go at the parameters meeting in a month. But I kind of wanted to show you the most conservative option first, and then obviously anything above that would just be less of a burden onto the city.
I guess I'm looking at where these bonds get paid off. I mean, we've been into this one already for 2022 for 2 years, going on 3. The 23 obviously going on 2, but a 20-year going into, they're all getting paid off at the same time within a year.
And kind of when we look at it from a long-term capital planning too, these two are callable anytime, but let's say the city did decide to move forward with this one. The hope would be, even if we had a 3-year call, so if bonds were issued this year, they'd be potentially could refund everything in year 2028. The hope would be as we paid some of this off, and so it's a shorter term, lower principal amount and everything else, and city rates are at a good level, we would refund this all into one bond and potentially could use that savings to either shorten the bond or downsize the annual debt service requirement. So again, that's how we look at it on a long-term perspective, but that's one of the caveats, as I mentioned, these two, we could do it immediately, but the thing is, because we're under the 2 times coverage, we actually can't issue additional debt. So I was actually pleasantly surprised. I thought the terms that they were going to be asking for were going to be a lot more stringent, and these seemed very fair because they said, well, 3 years, that's probably maybe a year extra from what they would do to finish up their project. And I was like, it's fairer than I thought they were going to be. So anyways, that's kind of the long-term perspective on it.
So basically what we're looking at is something that we asked and the public asked. Bring it down, do everything you can. And now we've got it before us that if we do this, it's no expense, any more expense to the public, no tax, no nothing like that. We can cover it and we can finish the 2 buildings. I mean,
Well, and we've done exactly what they've asked as well with getting the plans, getting the architecture so that they can look at it, see, and we can have the public hearing and sell it. It's something they've asked us to do.
I see no.
I mean, because
It's
we're not
really a
committing to
no-brainer.
it. I know.
I mean, and Bank of Utah is basically handing us, I think, a gift. I mean, yes, they're still making money, but
I already told Bank of Utah, I said, best case situation, we get direction today. Parameters meeting in April, public hearing in May, close end of May, early June.
sorry, yeah, I was hitting it, Mark. We do have to make a decision because these bonds, if we're not proceeding, they do have to be returned.
Yeah.
Before we face penalties.
You're right.
If we don't move in this direction, my next piece of advice to Jenny would be immediately pay back the 2023 bonds. Like we've pushed that envelope as long as I feel comfortable with, because there's been so much arbitrage discussion around that where, you issued lower than what you're earning and so on. But if we move forward with the 2025s, then that alleviates that concern because we could immediately start pushing that money towards the project.
and also the thing I'm looking at is we're at I mean, they cut, and we're at 12.5. And if we're to step away, who knows what it's gonna be. If it ever comes, you know, we know we need the buildings. And so, I don't see a better time than right now. Well, right, and they worked, I mean, this is something that they've been working at, and I think it's great that what we were able to give us tonight, that it's not gonna cost, I mean, we can cover the costs without raising taxes or anything.
Our overall goal is to try to maintain,
Yeah,
we're trying to, even less through the taxation was to maintain. And that was about $50,000, so that's all we recouped. And yet I look at what we've done with the $50,000 in moving ahead and what staff that has helped us create planning, create this, you know, creative and communication. Those were things that were important, that I felt like just maintaining that money. It costs to run a city, and I understand that.
And how can we lock the building costs in the 12.5? If we get 3/4 way in, oh. Gonna be another couple. Really,
Right.
what assurances do we have that it's gonna be holding to the fire on the 12.5?
That's a great question, and not wanting to do this, but what we would have to do is we tap into the remaining 20% of the fund balance to pay. We wouldn't issue any more. Obviously, this is a gift horse to have what they're giving us here. We would not be able to finance any more, so the city would cover those costs.
Well, so, sorry, I was just gonna say that actually brought up a good point. I apologize, Jenny, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, one thing I don't wanna see happen is us issue the 3.5 million and then we're locked into a 3-year call provision. So I think what we could do, and I'll bounce this off Bank of Utah, is to say, if for some reason these bonds get issued and the costs come in absorbingly high, you know, there's just no way around it, no fund balance transfer, like if it comes in, oh, sorry, it's actually a $20 million project, then I think we would build a kill switch into the bonds to say, hey, we have the right to turn in both the 2023 and the 2025 bonds within a year if prices come in at a certain level that just are unaffordable to the city. And then that way it protects you, because I don't want you to sit on bonds that you can't spend and you're paying interest on. So let me bounce that off of them, and if we decide to move forward, then we can bring that up at the next meeting. And I'm sure they would understand that too. Legally, I think that would be the best option. Sorry, that thought just popped in, so that was a great question.
We have other assets that the city isn't including in this bond proposal. You know, we have the building we're in now that we would sell, and the property over on 700, or some other things that we would liquidate to this, and that was always the plan, to have a little bit of rainy day fund in what we would, but the architect did say that it's really tricky for them to try to project out 6 months, let alone a year from now. The benefit to moving on this would be that our construction would begin as soon as this construction season, because we're ready to do construction documents on our architectural design, and so we'd have time in our favor rather than knowing that those costs are just going to continue to go up. But it's ultimately your decision to give us the direction of which way you want. And I would have felt like we had failed you, that staff had failed you in answering and getting every possible option available to you after what we experienced last year. So we just wanted to present this, that it is kind of a drop dead decision tonight. As Marcus pointed out, the $9 million, we've pretty much held those as long as they're gonna.
and we're only talking
Police, that's it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And let me add this to Jenny's statement. As we've gone through the design process, yes, they're just estimates. But we've already built a public works building. We're very, very cautious of what our architectural estimates are coming in at. That we're trying to make sure that that gap, when it does go out to bid, is that project cost, or as close to it as possible. Yes, there are sometimes an unforeseen small change order that might come up, but it won't be. We won't see millions in scope of change from our cost estimates, from where we've designed to our actual construction costs.
Is straw poll tonight?
I'm sorry,
A
what?
straw poll tonight needs to be.
We need the directions.
I say go for it.
Yeah, well, our recommendation would be a unanimous decision. You can vote however you want, but obviously we want to know that you're all aligned with this proposal. We don't want it to fail on our part after proposing some things that were misunderstood.
Do I need a motion, Brody?
We just need direction.
Okay, so yes, more or less a direction from the council.
It's gonna go back with the kill. I'm sorry, oh, sorry, what's that? Kill. Oh, so, yes, absolutely, and I think, yeah, I don't think that's gonna be an issue at all, just as I mentioned before, I don't think they wanna put you into a situation where you can't use the money, right? I don't, nobody wants to see a city struggle like that. So I'm sure if we have a certain period of time, and I've seen this before, that they usually give up to a year to say, hey, you have a year to send these back to us. Obviously, it'll accrue interest during that year, but send these back to us without penalty. I think we can get something put in there, but I'll come back to the meeting and report on that. But
All right, thank you.
They said,
How about we have a yes?
Yes.
Verbal.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate it. All your hard work on this. Moving on to item number 7, which is public comment. This is an opportunity for those in the audience that have come here to address the council. Come up to the podium, state your name and your concern, and you have 3 minutes.
Garris, I congratulate Councilman Williamson and Christensen and your note votes. At least your concerns that you expressed about the impact fee. $5,000, if you divide it by 30, is really not going to work. You got to take on the interest that you're paying. So it's really more than that. Yes, it wouldn't make it unaffordable, but it still adds a lot. The consideration for the council to me was, do we want to keep the same level? And that didn't seem to be a part of the discussion. It was just like you took what was given as council, which usually is, which you'll take. I feel like we are at a disadvantage because when it comes to your discussion, obviously you don't want our input. We have our time, the public hearing, we had it before everything else got mentioned and even time to look at it, but that doesn't matter. You're up here to decide and you've got these people to guide you. But we are the ones that live here. We're the taxpayers. I want to make a point. I've been hearing about public safety building. And there is no public safety building that was on the bonds. Even Marcus referenced public safety building, and I think even your agenda says that. The bonds do not reference a public safety building. You mentioned a council and a police station. My understanding that the city's been paying, well, I know, the city's been paying for the architect to do the plans for potential fire departments. And that just has puzzled me. Are you guys aware that's what's been going on? Admittedly, I understand the city's been reimbursed, but the answer I got back when I inquired of one of the councilmen was, oh, it's part of the public safety facility. And there is no public safety facility that I know of. At one point you talked about doing a different bond that you would have gotten revenue if you would have owned that. But it just puzzles me why you've been paying for architect of that, and when did the council approve that? Even though, quote, you're getting refunded, it's just amazing. I made an inquiry to the fire department, who I attend regularly, and they acknowledged to me that they're gonna go on their own. They looked at even potential another site, so they're very comfortable with the idea that they could put their next fire station wherever they want, based on them having paid for the architectural drawings. Thank you.
Ethan Hadley, just a couple of comments. Again, I want to echo what Kevin just mentioned. You know, I appreciate those who have the courage to stand up and say no. And just so you know, I did a mortgage calculation with an additional $5,000 on a $400,000 home. It's not $20 to $50, it's $167. $167 can buy at least a little bit of groceries, you know, and when people are strapped against, it does have a huge impact. That's a lot per year that you're burdening potential citizens of this city. One other question, and I feel like this is something that should be taken under great consideration by the council. I've had the privilege and opportunity to attending many other city council meetings. And ours is the only city in our tri-city area that does not have public comments before the discussions happen as well as after. You know, there was a lot that just happened, as has been mentioned, without any public comment. After we just witnessed a lot of discussion. We had no ability to ask questions. We had no ability to talk. And yet, where were our voices heard? They haven't. So why do we not do that? I think that should be a great consideration, that public comments at the beginning as well as at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Hi, nice to meet you all. We're kind of relatively new residents to Harrisville. We moved here about a year ago. My name is Lauren Rogers. This is my fiance, Zach Nicholas. So yeah, nice to meet you guys and see you face to face. We are residents of the Montgomery Farms neighborhood, and we're just looking to find out more information on the empty lot behind our house. I have the parcel number if that would be helpful. We spoke to the city recorder on the phone, which was that no applications have been submitted to the city for that land to annex it. To the best of our knowledge, it has not yet been annexed, but will be to Harrisville. We also spoke to the North Ogden City Council, weren't sure where it was going, and they told us that discussions with this land have already taken place in Harrisville. The future land use plan on your website does not include this specific property. So we are just requesting additional information around future discussions and plans for that land. And that is parcel number 1707-10023.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I do live here in Harrisville. I also want to thank the two that voted no. I heard that it just came up. I'm just running, and the attorney should know. If any of you have actually looked at the code that was mentioned up here and what it says. The code specifically says that any impact fees is not to be used to maintain parks we already have. It goes for new parks. There is prohibitions on this. So I'm wondering if you guys actually ever read the code that he talked about. I didn't get to look it up till after the public hearing was done. I was like, well, what does that code say? It was new to me. The other thing is I know that they said there's not going to be any taxes on us.
because of the money that this new bond now, this was supposed to be coming up. The one thing that I had a problem with was it's not gonna be mentioned to the public because we don't want any rumors. Understand there would be no rumors if there was more transparency. And we actually knew when we feel like this is, okay, we can't let the public know because we don't want rumors. So what is it that is actually going on behind our back? And then to sit down there and almost hearing like you guys are being told you have to vote this way. You are the elected officials, you're leaders, representatives. We voted for you, not for these people over here. You are to listen to us and what we want. That is the way code constitution of the US of Utah and the US Constitution is. We, the people, elected you to represent us, not people that are hired by the government. So I hope you guys keep that in mind when you're up here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Kathy. Any more? Public comments? If not, I'm going to move on. I'm actually going to address the one on parcels. Jenny, would you like to read that?
So if I'm guessing correctly, the parcel behind you is this unincorporated portion of Weaver County. So that is in Harrisville's annexation policy plan. So it's property of owner driven. So when the developer, a developer comes around or a property owner petitions the city for annexation, that's when the city takes action on it. We haven't received any petition for annexation. So as it stands, it's just unincorporated Weaver County right now, but it is in our annexation plan for the future to be incorporated into Harrisville.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Moving on to item 8, which is mayor council follow-up. We're gonna excuse our chief and director 5. I'm gonna start with Director Shinsel.
So it's spring in Harrisville, a lot of water, a lot of runoff. So we're trying to mitigate any issues. Again, we had quite the anomalous 2 inches of rain in 24 hours this last week. And we know how this clay does not take the moisture in, so we've been out doing everything that we can to mitigate flood problems. Also, coming out of winter, we're very much aware of potholes in the road, taking care of all the potholes that have come up before we can, we're doing the temporary patching right now of them, and then as soon as summer comes and we can get hot mix asphalt, we will do permanent repair of those potholes. We are looking at April 1st date for completion of the public works facility. If you've been driven by at all, you now see that is all the siding and exterior is done. We're doing some exterior lighting still left and some interior work to complete the project, and should be moved in fully by the 30th of April. So that is what I have to report.
Would you just touch on spring cleanup?
Oh, yes, we are the dates of 26th of April. Yeah. We will be holding the spring cleanup at the Public Works facility. We will be doing it, I believe we decided a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Open until 8 p.m. at night on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and open half day on Saturday. So we can make sure everybody that's in the city, again, it will be green waste only. It is not a garbage free for all. It is a green waste only cleanup. But we will have people on site. You do have to show proof of residency, either a utility bill or a driver's license with the Harrisville address. But it is free to come and dump at any of those hours. It will be behind locked gates after hours. So we can still provide that service, but not get hit with outside residents. Outside communities using what our residents help pay for.
Thank you. Those dates are 8/23 to
Yeah.
26.
2013.
Okay, Jenny, you wanna
Thank you.
report?
Sure. I just wanted to find out head count on anyone that's going to the league conference to make sure we get your registration in and have Councilmember Jackson. You're not, no, okay. All right, and the last update I have is we lost our contracted planner, Brandon Green from Jones and Associates. He took a position with another company, but we have been working with Sarah Winkner from Jones, and she's doing a great job for us. She's already meeting with our developments that we've received proposals on and continuing those discussions that we've had with our mixed use developments. So that is an update I wanted to make sure you were aware of, that we haven't implemented.
Thank you. Max, you have anything tonight?
We honored Dr. Keller tonight. I want to let everybody know what a big deal that is. It's been since 2002, since one of our officers was given the Utah Chiefs Award. That would have been Nate Thompson back in 2002. And it's that honor is very well vetted, and the fact that he got it is a big deal. I think we all need to realize that.
Thank you. He didn't know that till tonight, which is also very exciting. Robert.
Just one concern, I know the connection companies been going around our neighborhood. And drilling, I'm really quite concerned with where they're drilling. You know, I know they have a leeway on one side of the sidewalk, about 13 foot or 2 feet. And yet, when I've driven by, I've seen them over into the people's yards. And I know they nailed Bennett's water line. And it caused flooding inside his house. And so my concern is how that all taken care of. I know they'll take care of the property. What happens when we have something that's a backlog like that? The water, I'm just saying, it's a discussion, I'm concerned about.
And I've dealt with them in other cities. And I'll find the number. We actually in another city had a liaison that all concerned residents could contact, who was very helpful. Legally, they have to operate in the public utility easement. And any damage, they have to replace the property to how it was, but any damage they caused, that they are liable for it. And to be honest, in the other city that I've helped, they were very responsive to those concerns. I can get the number and forward it to Jenny the mayor.
I know they immediately took care of it, fixed it, but even though it was an inconvenience for everybody around.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, I wondered how far that went.
They're
There's a cause and effect.
absolutely, yeah, no different than. You know, if you caused damage on your property, you would be civilly liable for it. It's the exact same. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Karen.
No. Okay, Claire.
We are now going to move on to item number 9, which is a closed executive session. This is for the purposes described in use code a 52-4-2051C strategy sessions to discuss pending or reasonable imminent litigation. I will need a motion to go into a closed session, and then those in the audience that are not invited to stay will need.
I make a motion to go to closed session.
Yes, you have to state the reason.
I make a motion to go into closed session for the purpose described in UCA 54.
Keep going.
2051 strategy session to discuss pending or reasonable imminent litigation.
I'll say it.
Right. I need to.
Whatever it's down here.
I've got a motion to second. Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Fawcett. Yes. Councilmember Simpson.
Yes.
Councilmember Christensen.
Yes.
Thank you. Any motion for that?
Make a motion,
Close. Close the closed session.
I make a motion, we close the closed session.
All right, motion and a second, Councilmember Christensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson.
Yes.
Councilmember Fawcett. Yes. Councilmember Jackson.
Yeah.
Councilmember Woods.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 10, motion to adjourn, please.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Long meeting.